Howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. And today, in the immediate lead up to the Legion expansion, we had the very big news of the new Atlas of Worlds reveal. If you're an endgame player, and by that I mean really anyone that gets past about level 85 in most leagues that they play in, the Atlas of Worlds is the spot that you spend most of your time. And so even slight changes to it can make a big change to the tile sets that you're playing in, and to some of the goals that can feel achievable or that can feel unachievable. If you're someone that's a newer player, what I suggest you do is you approach the Atlas of Worlds with a non-min-maxed approach. You just run through, do the maps that you earn. Once you find that the maps are getting too difficult, tone back and just keep working on the tiers that you feel you can comfortably beat. And just keep challenging yourself to get closer and closer to the center. And then ultimately, do every map that you come across. And then ultimately, maybe you'll try to get the Shaper down in that league as, sort of a whole of league goal, something that you can be quite proud of achieving if you can pull it off. But for those of us for whom getting to the Shaper feels pretty routine, one of the things that's commonly done is setting up your Atlas in certain ways in order to min-max what drops. And I want to go through some of my thoughts for the Legion Atlas that have come up here. So I've taken a version of the Atlas of Worlds that was prepared by Vukandin with help from Empyrean, Red Summary, Chili, Hobbitcraft LOL, Dampen, Stubbs, and potentially more people on the Path of Exile Reddit. And I've then just gone and put dots on each map on the Atlas based upon whether the map contains a premium divination card, whether it's known to have a very high monster count layout, whether it's a fast layout to navigate, and whether it's got other premium drops. And so the premium drops really are just the 4 Shaper Guardian fragments. So you have a look here. I've made the dots larger for exceptionally good examples. So for instance, you'll see Desert Spring has an enormous orange dot on it. That's because it has the most monsters of any map in the game by a long way. Now that was true as of Synthesis League. I cannot guarantee that it is still true in Legion, but I'm working to the assumption that there haven't been any major undocumented changes. This assumption will be proven wrong. There will be some undocumented changes that we're not aware of, and those will be found out by players, and we're just going to have to adjust our Atlas strategies. But this is what I'm going into the league with a plan of. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is that there is actually not much at all in white maps. There's Burial Chambers. Burial Chambers has a premium divination card, the Doctor card, 8 of which turns in for a Headhunter. Now, a very important point that I need to add here is that whilst I'm going to go over the Balance Manifesto in a separate video, there is a point in it that says that the Headhunter unique belt is going to be made rarer than it's been previously. Now, I don't know how significant this is going to be, but I am assuming that it will apply to divination cards for Headhunter. Headhunter is already a very rare item. And generally speaking, if you have a Magic Find character that's got about 60% increased item quantity, which is a pretty reasonable amount to get, historically it's taken about 2,000 Burial Chambers to self-farm a Headhunter. 2,000 maps is a hell of a lot, and that number's going to increase. Essentially, the way that I think of Headhunter is an item that you need to be trading with other players in order to get. Obviously, there are people that will be an exception to this, people that are like, you know what, I'm just going to grind out 6,000 of this map. Great content creator, Slippery Jim 10 is a good example of this. But I certainly don't have the patience for this. The leagues where I want to go for a Headhunter, I put a lot of effort into trading and crafting for profit. And the things that I craft that are profitable, I sell for Exalted Orbs, and then I trade those Exalted Orbs to acquire Doctor cards, Nurse cards, whatever, in order to assemble my own Headhunter. So farming Burial Chambers has been pretty lucrative. Typically you get one Doctor Divination card about every 250 maps, and Slippery Jim 10 did an excellent video where he tested 10,000 maps using Magic Find gear, and I believe from memory he got 41 or so copies of the Doctor card from that. So I'm just going to assume that it's a somewhat statistically significant sample size. It's not as significant statistically as if we'd had 50,000 maps, but no one's going to run 50,000 maps just for the benefits of science. That would be a monumental endeavor. I'm just going to assume that they are about 1 in 250 as of Synthesis League. Now, if that's made much rarer, this will cause the price of Headhunter to go up and hence the Doctor card to go up, but not necessarily in a predictable fashion. The last league where Headhunter was quite rare was the Abyss League, when most of the methods for farming it didn't exist, except for the Doctor Divination cards. And in that league, my recollection is that it peaked at about 120 exalts, which would be 15 per Doctor card. I could be wrong on that recollection, that's just what I remember it as. For comparison's sake, in Synthesis, I sold my Doctor for 6.3 exalts, which would have put the Headhunter belt in the very, very low 50s at the time that I sold that Doctor card. So there can be quite a bit of variance. That ultimately, it comes down to supply versus demand, but there's not some predictable linear relationship between the two. And so it's really hard to say if, for instance, the Doctor was made 3 times as rare. It's really hard to say whether it would be twice as expensive, 3 times as expensive, or even 4 times as expensive. And so it's hard to make any predictions as to how much that card will affect, the changes in rarity to Headhunter will affect the profitability of running Burial Chambers. However, I'm going to assume that it is still a premium choice. In any case, I've gone through and picked out what I feel are the very best maps. All natural 16s, firstly. I expect Shaper Fragments to be valuable because the necklace from the Shaper has been made rarer. Again, that's being mentioned in the Trade Manifesto. In the Balance Manifesto. Now, making that item rarer will make it a real chase item, and it'll become quite a lottery to run the Shaper. People will be running the Shaper deliberately a lot longer into the league than they were in Synthesis, and especially in previous leagues. People will be target farming the Shaper as well. So this means that I think natural 16s, even though they're all mediocre layouts with small numbers of monsters, I think they'll all be quite good because of the fragment that you get from them. In terms of red maps, Tier 15 Desert Spring has the highest absolute monster count in the game, and it's not close. The high monster count means better returns, and it means more XP per map. Desert Spring being 15 is really significant because Tier 15 maps can drop Tier 16s. And Desert Spring, running it as a Tier 15 is an absolutely phenomenal way to find yourself swimming in natural Tier 16 maps, or your Elder Orb map, depending on how you set your Atlas up. Of note, you'll see if you have a look here that Desert Spring is connected to one of the 4. I believe that is the no, that's the Chimera. This is the Hydra. It's connected to the Hydra map. This means that drops from Desert Spring are biased towards the Hydra map. I believe there is a case to be made for players electing to... I believe this is going to mean that Hydra maps are going to be quite a bit cheaper than the other 3. If you get Hydra maps dropping for you, you will want to use Horizon Orbs on them to transform them into the other 3 Guardian maps before you sell them, unless of course you're intending to run lots of Hydras yourself. Now, Summit is another great choice. It's a balance of smooth layout and a high monster count, not as high as Desert Spring. The boss is difficult though, and the boss gates a lot of the monsters in the zone, because you fight the boss twice, and after you cause him to flee the first time, you then have that passageway that is full of monsters. And those monsters have been changed recently. This was a Synthesis change. Those monsters are being changed to give XP and loot. 13 offers the Shrine, which has another premium divination card. This is the Fiend, a set of 11 for a corrupted Headhunter with a single Val implicit. 11 has Precinct, and 12, which has one of the Exaltive cards, and 12 has Lava Lake, which has a Chaos Orb divination card. These are all fairly stacked maps. They have a lot of monsters in them, and they also have a divination card. Or in Lava Lake's case, it's not quite as stacked as the other 2, but it has a smooth layout. So it's got 2 good things going. Each of these has 2 good things going for it. Tower has another premium divination card. It has the Nurse divination card, which turns in for the Doctor, again, building up to a Headhunter. These, and then Crimson Temple, I believe, and I'm not 100% certain on this, I believe this has the divination card, the Life Thief, for the Zerfi Amulet, which grants Soul Eater for 10 seconds upon using a Val skill. I've not personally seen this drop, and this is not corroborated on the Wikipedia, or not Wikipedia, the Path of Exile wiki. So I may be wrongly attributing it to Crimson Temple, but I believe it drops there. If Headhunter has been made rarer and Xerxes Heart has not been, then Crimson Temple may become a good choice to farm, because people who give up on acquiring a Headhunter may decide they want to settle for a Xerxes instead and readjust their build, because they're not the same item. You do need a slightly different build in order to use Xerxes well. So those are the red maps I think are the best in this atlas. For yellows, 10 we have Bazaar, at 9 we have Arsenal. Both has a good monster count and a good divination card. They both have divination cards for Exalted Orbs. 7 has Spider Forest, which is a premium divination card. It's another Source of the Doctor, so previously it's been the most impactful divination card in the game. Whites don't have as much going for them. They have Crater, which is a high monster count and a solid but unspectacular layout. So my initial thoughts, and I'm interested in your ideas. In previous leagues, I've been going full completion on the Atlas, and I want to do something different this league. My current plans are to complete all of Tier 1 through Tier 8. In Tiers 9 and 10, I'm only doing Arsenal and Bazaar. 11 and 12, I'm doing everything. 13, I'm only doing Tower. 14, I'm leaving completely blank. 15 and 16, I'm doing all of them. This is going to take a bit of scrubbing maps off the Atlas using Master Cartographer seals, which can be an expensive procedure, but once you're set up, you're set up. I'm going to be running Towers where possible, with a goal of farming Nurse Divination cards. Whenever I run out of Towers, which may or may not happen, I'm not sure how Map Sustain is going to feel in this league, I'm going to take my Arsenals and my Bazaars, and I'm going to use Zana's +5 tiers to a yellow map mod, which costs 6 Chaos Orbs, and transforms your Tier 10 map into a Tier 15 version of itself with random rare mods, or your Tier 9 into a Tier 14. So the idea here is that I'll be running my towers, and when I run out of them, I will then go and I'll pick up the Bazaars, and I'll run them as Tier 15s. When I'm running those Tier 15s, I will occasionally, not very often, but occasionally, I will get drops of Tier 16 maps. I will also get natural Tier 15s dropping for me. These I'm just going to sell, and I'll get a lot of 15s and a fair few 16s. These I'll sell for Chaos Orbs in order to fund the Zana upgrades. Whenever a Tier 14 map would drop, or a Tier 13, the only possibility is for it to drop as a tower. However, when I am in a tower, the only Tier 13 that can drop is a tower, but the Tier 14s that can drop is anything adjacent. So if we go to where the tower map is, and it's not that yellow one, it's this yellow one. So if a Tier 14 drops, it will usually be Primordial Blocks. In fact, it will. No, actually, it will always be Primordial Blocks when I'm in tower. So I'll get a surplus of a lot of Primordial Blocks. Those I'm just going to end up selling to other players, and then I will, as well as all my 15s and all my 16s that are natural maps. I may occasionally run some of those just for a bit of variety. You know, I might go, oh yep, I feel like killing a set of Shaper Guardians and then the Shaper at the end of that. But I'm not intending to farm Uber Elder in this league. If I change my mind on that and I decide to get back into a rhythm of farming Uber Elder, then I will complete all of those maps on the Atlas. So that's my current plan, and I think it's something that can work for other players, but it's certainly far from the only option. If you've got your own ideas, let me know below. Otherwise, in terms of other content today, I'm intending to get out a response to the Balance Manifesto, which I'm reasonably positive about, although I know it's been a much more mixed bag online. So I'll get that out, but that's going to be a few hours away. Otherwise, have a good one.